All right, for this video, you need to have out a separate sheet of paper. This is a review for your unit circle quiz. This was a group competition, so you don't have a sheet for it. And what you need to have out is a clean copy of the unit circle. So you see mine here. Because remember, the unit circle is where we are getting everything from. You want to have one of your clean copies that has all the degrees and radians and cosine and sine and tangent values, so that all you have to do is look at your unit circle to take those values out from it. So if we look at number 1, it says tangent of a negative pi over 2. We have a trig value that tells us what part of it that we need, and then the angle measure tells us where to look. So this is a negative pi over 2. A positive pi over 2 is up here at 90 degrees, which is a positive pi over 2. But since I want a negative angle, we are going to end up down here. So we're actually looking at 270 degrees. I want the tangent value. Remember, tangent is y divided by x. So the y is a negative 1 divided by 0, which is why we have an undefined answer. Number 2, sine of 750. All right, so 750 is not on the unit circle. Our unit circle goes to 360, but we know about coterminal angles. Coterminals, so if I subtract 360, I end up at 390. Well, that's still off our unit circle, so subtract 360 again, and we're really at 30 degrees. So this is actually asking us, what is the sine of 30 degrees? This tells me what part I'm looking for at this location. Again, we look at our unit circle, we find 30 degrees right here. And when I'm looking at 30 degrees, I want the sine value. Remember, sine is the y. So at 30 degrees, root 3 over 2 is the x. The y, the second number in the coordinate, there is 1/2. Number 3, we've got cosine of a negative 20 pi over 3. Once again, negative 20 pi over 3 is not on the unit circle. The unit circle only goes up to 2 pi. So we need to find a positive negative coterminal angle. So to figure out where 20 pi over 3 is on the unit circle, we have to keep on adding 2 pi until we get to a positive value, or I guess we get to a negative 2 pi over 3, and we know where a negative 2 pi over 3 is. So if we look at 2 pi over 3, this is here at 120. So if I want a negative 2 pi over 3, we are over here at 240 degrees. Or you could have added 2 pi again, which would have gotten you that 4 pi over 3. So however you end up finding it, it doesn't really matter. But our goal is that we are looking here at 240 degrees. And because we want cosine, we are looking at the x-coordinate. So once we find the correct location, we are looking for the x-coordinate at that location. That's that first number in the ordered pair. So the cosine value is a negative 1/2. We do get some more tricky ones besides coterminals. Cosecant. Remember, cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So if I'm at negative 150, get a positive 150 is right here. If I'm going a negative 150, I'm really here at 210 degrees. And what we want is the reciprocal of sine, which is the reciprocal of y. So sine of negative 150 is a negative 1/2. So for the cosecant, we do the reciprocal of that, which makes that value a negative 2. Number 5 is the secant. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Negative 5 pi over 6. Looking at our unit circle, Positive 5 pi over 6 is here at 150. So if I want a negative, I'm just turning the other direction, which is at 7 pi over 6, which is at 210 degrees. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Cosine is the x value. So the cosine of a negative 5 pi over 6 is that negative root 3 over 2. So if I want the secant, I want the reciprocal. And what this creates is that problem where you have to rationalize. So we end up with 2 root 3 over 3, and that's a negative value, a negative 2 root 3 over 3. All right, same thing for number 6. We find the tangent of that coterminal, or that angle, and then we go ahead and do the reciprocal. Let's move on to the next section. So this was all given the angle measure. What was the trig ratio? Now we're working on the inverse trig. So now I'm giving you the trig ratio, and you have to find what angle gives you that value. So sine means that we're looking at the y value, which y value is a negative 1/2. Remember, y is your movement up and down. Since our y is a negative 1/2, we're looking, where does it go down 1/2? So I'm looking at my unit circle. If I'm going down 1/2, I see that in 2 spots, right over here at 330. But I also go down 1/2 over at 210. Remember, except for the x and y axis, all of your values are going to happen in 2 spots. In this case, it's 330 and 210. Only one of them is correct, not both of them. Sine asks you to choose from quadrant 1 or quadrant 4, so we're going to choose that sine value from quadrant 4. Don't write 330 degrees, because remember, quadrant 4, we use the negative angle measures. So not 330, but a negative 30, which is a negative pi over 6. Number 8, which y value gives you a sine value of 2? Well, that's not possible. The biggest our sine gets, our y value, the highest we move up is 1, and that's at 90 degrees. We did end up with a negative 2 up here in number 4 because it was the reciprocal of sine, and that reciprocal of 1/2 ended up with 2. Sine and cosine can never be bigger than 1 because unit circle has that radius of 1. So in this case, that wasn't possible. Cosecant of 2. Okay, so remember, cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Cosecant is not on your unit circle, but sine is. So if we have a cosecant value of 2, that came from a sine value of 1/2. So what we're looking for is what angle gives us a sine value of 1/2. Oh, look, we did that one already. Don't waste your time, we already did it. Sine of 1/2 happens at 30 degrees. Oh, I lied. That was a sine of a negative 1/2. Just joking. Sine of 1/2 is going to happen, though, right above 330 at 30 degrees. So that's going to happen at 30 degrees, which is pi over 6. We're almost done. Which angle gives us a cosine, an x value, of a negative 1/2? Cosines move left and right. Since it's negative, we're looking, where do I go left 1/2? I look at my unit circle. I'm going left 1/2. I see a left 1/2 right up here at 120, and I see a left 1/2 down here at 240. It always happens in 2 spots. Only one of them is correct. For cosine, we choose from quadrant 1 or quadrant 2. So in this case, this is the correct location, which is at 120 degrees, which is 2 pi over 3. Number 11, tangent of 1. So tangent on our unit circle we see is purple. When I look here, I'm looking where do I have a purple value of a positive 1? That's here at 45 degrees, and it's down here at 225. We want the one that comes from quadrant 1, so we have 45 degrees, which is pi over 4. Last one, secant. Remember, secant is not on your unit circle, but secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So I did the reciprocal of cosine to get 2 root 3 over 3. So I undo that reciprocal part of it. And that means that I am looking where on my unit circle did I have a cosine value of root 3 over 3. Cosine being x. So I look, oops. Hopefully you caught my mistake. This is supposed to be a 3. It's like something's not right, which makes this a root 3 over 2. Said root 3 over 3 doesn't exist there. So I'm looking for an x value of root 3 over 2. So I'm going to the right, root 3 over 2, and I see that here at 30 degrees, and I see it down here at 330. Cosine pulls from quadrant 1 or quadrant 2. Therefore, I'm choosing the one from quadrant 1, which is 30 degrees at pi over 6. So those are the two different ways that we are looking at the unit circle. Sometimes we use the unit circle to find the trig ratio when I give you the angle, and other times I'm giving you the trig ratio for you to tell me what the angle is.